I was going to ask you, like with Pensacola and over in that office that you're in,
Mhm.
what do you think makes practice in family law in Pensacola and Santa Rosa counties, unique from other places you may have practiced?
Well, I would say originally I was over on the East Coast and I went to some very large markets. I was traveling up and down, from Brevard County, Cocoa Beach area down to Miami and Fort Lauderdale and some of these bigger areas. And I would say here there's a smaller community of family lawyers that actually do this regularly. I would say, we're dealing with the same 4 to 6 judges on a regular basis or magistrates on a regular basis. You're dealing with the same people. I think what it creates is a environment of accountability because you're going to be in front of those individuals regularly, and I think it also gives a great basis for us because then we know generally what to expect. I mean, we can't always predict it. We have no crystal ball, but we have an idea of what the judge likes in their courtroom and what they expect from each. Because every judge is different in how they deal with things. It's good to be able to know a little bit about them and have that. You generally need to be reasonable, with the other side and outside of the courtroom because you're going to see them again. It's not like you're in Miami and you may see that person once a year. You probably see them multiple times a year. From the dynamic of the population here, we have a huge amount of military, which is great. We have a great military population here. A lot of them live in Santa Rosa County, so we get Santa Rosa County cases, but a lot of them live in Escambia as well. Even as far as Okaloosa, you look at, you got Hurlburt and Eglin, but over here we have the Navy base, we have NAS, we have Whiting Field, we have Duke Field. All of those, employ a large number of military and contract laborers. And then we also have the Navy Federal Credit Union. We have a large hub here. So we have a lot of people that are all doing similar work and all, a pretty good community.
But, I think, too, touching on what you just said, I think we're kind of a unique place in the Northwest Florida area, Pensacola, Santa Rosa, Okaloosa, Walton Bay. I was at the Florida Bar Committee meetings, and those are usually, the family law section meets. It's usually in South Florida or Central South Florida area. And, when I was there, they were asking me, do you have cases with like the same attorneys all the time? Like that was foreign. And it was very hard for me to imagine that I would be seeing the same family law attorneys again and again. And, I'm sure that they have some overlap where they live, but, we have overlap on a lot of the cases. And I think, if done correctly and you have a opposing counsel that's reasonable and that you can build a rapport with, I think sometimes that may give me the ability to call them up and say, hey, like we've done this before. We've done this dance. We've seen this similar fat pattern before. Can we do to kind of cut to the chase and get this over for everybody and get it over in an amicable way? If you can build those relationships. But I also think that, your professionalism has to be on point because when you deal with the same attorneys time and time again, and you've done something that, is not professional, they're going to remember that. You don't get a redo with a fresh start a lot of the time. I think that's where, character and professionalism and ethics kind of come into play. And I think that tight knitness of where we live and the same people doing the cases, I think, kind of creates a set of rules, standards that are maybe unique to our geographic area. But I thought that was kind of interesting, their perspective versus our perspective on, seeing the same people. And I wouldn't want it any other way. I enjoy seeing the same people. And from a litigator standpoint, if we have to go to litigation, I like to know how David plays the game, or I like to know how the other side's going to approach things. It allows me to develop a strategy, based on how I know they're going to, usually present their case, and what to expect. And you going into the unknown and you're in a situation like that, to me, it's a lot more nerve wracking than going into the.
Well, it goes. I'll go back to baseball for a minute because that's easy for me. If I'm going in the courtroom, I'm going in there to be a gladiator. I'm going in there to leave it all on the field. And when I come off the field, I'm still going to shake your hand and say good game, and we're still going to be cordial. And I think that with the small community we have of litigators in the area and the limited number of judges we deal with on a regular basis, I think that facilitates, hey, we know what, like you said, we know what the expectation is. There's a better opportunity for us to resolve it without litigation, or alternatively fight it, narrow the issues so we're not wasting money and time.